Retiring in 2026 with $1 million and the 4% rule? You have a 1 in 3 chance of going broke. Not maybe. Not possibly. Definitely. And I know what you're screaming at the screen. But Tom, the Trinity study, William Bengen. It's proven. Science. Stop. Just stop. The science has changed. I'm going to show you the new 2026 math that proves why the golden rule of retirement has become a death trap for your portfolio. And I'm going to show you exactly how to fix it before you hand in your resignation letter. Quick note, this is educational content about retirement withdrawal strategies, not financial advice. Markets change. Consult a qualified professional before making decisions. Now here's what you need to understand. The 4% rule wasn't designed for you. It was designed for a world that doesn't exist anymore. Back in 1994, William Bengen published the famous study. He looked at market history. He crunched the numbers. And he found that if you took out 4% of your portfolio in year 1 and adjusted for inflation every year after that, you would survive 30 years. It worked in the Great Depression. It worked in the stagflation of the 1970s. So financial advisors latched onto it. It became the gospel. Save 25 times your expenses. Take 4%. You're safe. But here's the thing. Bengen's data ended in 1992. Think about that. The study that your entire retirement plan is built on missed the dot-com crash. It missed the 2008 financial crisis. It missed the zero interest rate era. It missed the inflation spike of the 2020s. You are betting your life savings on a map that stops drawing the road right before the cliff. Now here's where it gets insane. When the 4% rule was tested, stock valuations were average. Bond yields were high. You could get 7% or 8% just by buying government bonds. Today, stock valuations, specifically the K-pay ratio, are near historical highs. Bond yields are volatile, so you are buying expensive stocks and hoping for perfect returns. The math doesn't work. If you retire into a recession with high valuations, which is exactly what the data suggests for the late 2020s, the safe withdrawal rate isn't 4%. According to Morningstar's latest State of Retirement Income Report, the safe withdrawal rate is closer to 3.8%. Other experts, like Wade Pfau, argue it could be as low as 2.8% if valuations stay this high. So why is your financial advisor still telling you 4%? Because 4% is easy to sell. You have $1 million? Here's $40,000 a year. Sign here? It's easy for them. It's dangerous for you. So why does this happen? Why does a small change in the percentage wreck your life? It comes down to an invisible killer. Wall Street calls it sequence of returns risk. I call it bad timing. Let me explain it simply. When you are saving money, a market crash is a good thing. Stocks are on sale. You buy more shares for cheaper. But when you are retired and spending money, a market crash is a fire. It burns down your house. Imagine you have $1 million. The market drops 20%. Now you have $800,000. But you still need to pay your bills. So you withdraw your $40,000. Now you have $760,000. To get back to even, a market doesn't need to go up 20%. It needs to go up 32%. You are digging a hole that the math makes impossible to climb out of. This is reverse dollar cost averaging. You are forced to sell more shares when they are low just to buy the same amount of groceries. But here's the thing. It's not just the market. It's the inflation, and specifically your inflation. The official inflation rate, the CPI, is a basket of goods for the average person. Are you the average person? No. You're a retiree. Your basket is different. The CPI Tracks things like flat-screen TVs, used cars, and apparel. When was the last time the price of a flat-screen TV bankrupted a retiree? Never. But look at what you buy. Healthcare, property taxes, services, insurance. These are the senior inflation categories. And historically, medical inflation runs at double the rate of the CPI. So while the government says inflation is 3%, your personal inflation might be 5% or 6%. So let's play that out. The 4% rule says, take $40,000 plus inflation. If your personal inflation is 5%, year 1, $40,000. Year 2, $42,000. Year 3, $44,100. You are drastically increasing your withdrawals exactly when your portfolio might be crashing. It is a double-edged sword slicing through your savings. And the financial industry knows this, but they play a game of averages. They say, the stock market averages 10% a year. Sure, on average. But you don't get average returns. You get sequenced returns. If you get negative 15% in year 1 and positive 20% in year 5, the average might look okay. But you might already be broke by year 5. Wall Street wins. Savers lose. They get their 1% fee on your money, whether it goes up or down. You take 100% of the risk. Let me give you a concrete example. Meet Robert. Robert retired in the year 2000. He did everything right. He saved $1 million. He followed the 4% rule perfectly. He took out $40,000 to live on. Then, the dot-com bubble burst. The S&P 500 dropped. Did Robert stop spending? No. The rule says he gets $40,000 plus inflation. So in 2001, he took out more money from a smaller pot. Then 2002 happened. Another drop. By 2003, Robert's portfolio was down significantly, but his withdrawals were up to $43,000 because of inflation. He was eating the seed, corn. Then 2008 hit, a great recession, the knockout blow. By 2012, just 12 years into retirement, Robert wasn't worrying about inheritance. He was worrying about rent. He was greeting customers at Walmart just to pay his property tax. Robert didn't fail. The system failed Robert. He followed the rules. The rules were wrong. So here's what's going to happen if you ignore this. If you just stick your head in the sand and say, 4% is fine, you are playing Russian roulette with your old age. And the bullet in the chamber is longevity risk. Here is the brutal truth. You are likely to leave longer than you planned. Medical technology is accelerating. Heart disease treatments, cancer therapies. People are living to 90, 95, 100. If you plan for 30 years and you live for 35, those last 5 years are destitute. You are. But your money is dead. Let's look at the numbers side by side. Jennifer versus Mark. Both start with $1 million in 2026. Mark uses the fixed 4% rule. He takes his check every month, regardless of what the market does. If we hit a bad sequence of returns like the 1970s or early 2000s, Mark runs out of money at age 82. He has $0. But he's still alive. He has to move in with his kids, or depend entirely on Social Security, which might have been cut by then. Now, look at Jennifer. She uses the dynamic rule I'm about to show you. She survives the same bad market. At age 82, she still has $600,000. At age 95, she still has money. The difference isn't the market. The market was the same for both of them. The difference was the strategy. Now here's the part that should terrify you. We haven't even talked about the widowmaker, long-term care, nursing homes. According to Genworth's cost of care survey, The national median cost for a private room in a nursing home is already over $100,000 a year. In 2035, project that out at 5% inflation. You're looking at $15,000 a month, maybe more. And here's the kicker. The 4% rule assumes you never spend a dime on a nursing home. It assumes your spending is smooth, linear, predictable. Life is not linear. One stroke, one fall, one diagnosis, and suddenly your burn rate triples. If your portfolio is already fragile because you've been blindly taking 4% during a downturn, one medical event in your 80s doesn't just dip into your savings. It vaporizes them. You go from middle class to Medicaid in 6 months. This is the nightmare scenario, and it happens every day. But here's the good news. You can prevent this. You don't need to beat the market. You just need to change the math. So how do we fix this? How do we retire without the fear of running out? We have to shift your mindset. Stop thinking in static numbers. Stop thinking, I get $40,000 forever. Your withdrawal rate must breathe. It must be alive. It has to expand when the market is good and contract when the market is bad. We call this the Guardrails Approach. It was popularized by financial planner Jonathan Guyton and computer scientist Guyton-Klinger. But I'm going to simplify it for you. Here is the concept. Instead of a fixed 4%, you actually start higher, maybe 4.5%, maybe even 5% if market valuations are low. Wait, what? I just told you 4% was dangerous, and now I'm saying take 5%? Yes, but there is a catch. There are guardrails. Think of it like driving on a mountain road. The fixed 4% rule is like setting your cruise control to 60 miles per hour and locking the steering wheel. It works fine on a straight, flat highway, but if you hit a curve or a cliff, you crash. The Guardrails Approach is simply putting your hands on the wheel and using the brakes. Here is the exact math of how it works. Let's say you start with $1 million and take $50,000 a year. That's a 5% withdrawal rate. Now, imagine the market crashes 20%. Your portfolio falls to $800,000. If you keep taking $50,000, your new withdrawal rate is suddenly 6.25%. That is the danger zone. That is where you run out of money. So the rule triggers. A guardrail says, cut spending by 10%. So instead of $50,000, you take $45,000. You tighten the belt. You skip the big vacation this year. You eat out less. You delay buying the new car just for a year or two until the market recovers. Why does this small cut matter? Because you stop selling shares when they are cheap. You preserve the capital so it can grow back when the market turns. Now, let's look at the upside. The market booms. Your portfolio grows to $1.2 million. Your withdrawal rate drops below 4%. You have too much money. The guardrail triggers a raise. You increase your spending by 10%. You enjoy the fruits of the bull market. Now here's what's wild about this. By being willing to cut spending during the bad times, you ensure your survival. You stop the bleeding. Let's go back to Robert. Remember Robert? The guy who retired in 2000 and went broke? If Robert had used guardrails in 2001, when the market tanked, the rule would have triggered. Cut spending 10%. So instead of taking $40,000 plus inflation, he takes $36,000. In 2002, market drops again. Another cut? Maybe. He's down to $32,000. Does that suck? Yes, absolutely. Nobody wants to cut their spending, but because he cut his spending, he kept his capital. He didn't burn the furniture to heat the house. So when the market turned around, when The bull run of 2003 to 2007 happened. Robert still had money invested. He rode the wave back up. The guardrails would have triggered a raise, and then another raise. By 2012, instead of greeting customers at Walmart, Robert would have a healthy portfolio and a restored income. He survived. Because he bent, he didn't break. So what does this actually mean? For you, it means you don't have to be scared of the market crashing. You just need a plan that crashes with it and recovers with it. Now, I know some of you are thinking, Tom, I can't cut my spending. My bills are fixed. I have a mortgage. I have property tax. I can't just decide to spend 10% less on electricity. I get it. That is a valid objection. You can't cut your needs. You can only cut your wants. And that leads us to the specific way you need to structure your money to make this work. Here's exactly what to do. You don't need a PhD to do this. You don't need a fancy advisor taking 1%. You need 3 buckets. This is the SAFE 2026 plan. This is your survival number. Add up your property tax, utilities, insurance, basic food, gas, the bills that must be paid, or you go to jail or starve. Let's say that number is $3,000 a month. You need to cover this number with guaranteed income, Social Security, pension, maybe, and immediate annuity if you absolutely have to fill a gap. This money never touches the stock market. This money never touches the 4% rule. This is your floor. If the market drops 50%, you can still buy groceries. This is your portfolio, your 401k, your IRA. This pays for the fun stuff, travel, new cars, gifts for the grandkids, eating out. THIs is the money that follows the guardrails. If the market tanks, you cut this budget. You don't go to Europe this year. You go to the state park. You don't buy the new Lexus. You drive the old Toyota one more year. By separating needs from wants, you make the spending cuts painless. You aren't cutting your electricity bill. You're delaying luxury. That is doable. Now here's the critical part. The strategy suggests keeping 2 years of that variable spending in cash. High yield, savings account, money market fund, not stocks. Why? Because when the market crashes, you do not want to sell stocks to pay for your vacation. You use the cash buffer. It buys you time. It buys you peace of mind. It prevents you from panicking. Here is the mechanics of how you use it. When the market is up, you sell some stocks to refill the cash bucket. You skim the cream off the top. When the market is down, you stop selling stocks. You leave them alone. You spend down the cash bucket. If the market stays down for 2 years, that's okay. You have 2 years of cash. You can ride out the storm without selling a single share at a loss. This prevents the sequence of returns risk we talked about earlier. You can start this today. Go check your spending. Log into your bank account. Separate every expense into need or want. Be honest. Netflix is a want. Steak is a want. Property tax is a need. That want number? That is your safety valve. As long as that number is flexible, you are invincible. So here's what I want you to take away from this. 3 things. First, the 4% rule is a relic. It's a dusty old map for a territory that has changed. Using it in 2026 is financial negligence. Second, inflation and sequence of returns are the enemies. They work together to drain your account. You must respect them. Third, flexibility is the cure. The person who can adjust their spending wins. The person who demands a fixed paycheck from a volatile market loses. Remember the 1 in 3 chance of going broke I mentioned at the start? If you use the guardrails, If you separate your needs and wants, that risk drops to near zero. Trade consistent paychecks for guaranteed survival. I'll take survival any day. The 98% pray the market goes up so they can pay their bills. They wake up every morning checking the CNBC ticker, terrified of red arrows. The smart 2%? They adjust their sails. They know that if the storm comes, they just slow down. They don't capsize. They survive. And because they survive, they are there to catch the wind when it returns. You still have time to set this up. Don't let a rule from 1994 ruin your 2026. Be the lazy investor. Build the system. Protect your downside. And let the market do the work.